He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith Chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith Chapter. That's right. Welcome to the Fith Chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. And Dennis, I'm going to throw you a curveball. I'm going to start off the show with a major prediction. I predict that the Tigers' lone all-star in 2021 will be Willie Castro. That after he hit his third home run of the spring today.
Well, nothing like jumping on the bandwagon right out there in front. Give me Casey Mize.
Casey Mize? Wow, I think he had another 2-inning, 3-walk outing over the weekend. So that's going on more of a ledge. I'll give you credit for that. Of course, if he ends up getting sent down to the minors or doesn't even get to the major leagues by the time the All-Star break happens, well, that'll be a big flop by you. But we're about bold predictions on this show, so those are our bold predictions. Casey Mize for you and Willie Castro for me.
Mize is just out there, working on those third and fourth pitches. That's what you're supposed to do in the spring.
Yeah, well, that's true. It's early. It's only March 9th, by the way. R.I.P. Biggie Smalls. But definitely want to thank everybody for tuning in to episode 85 of the Fith Chapter. We've got 5 more fantastic chapters for you. Thanks to all who are watching via YouTube, via Facebook Live, and via Twitch. Also, I want to thank everybody who's listening to the podcast via Apple, Google, and Spotify. If you're interested in the podcast, it is available at around 11 o'clock on the day of each show. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and participate if you're watching the show live on either Facebook Live or YouTube. Dennis will be reading your comments throughout the show. Also, we've got our intern, Brian Jelinek, who will be monitoring and guiding some of the conversation as well. We'll see him a little bit later on in the show as well. When will we see him? Well, let's take a look at today's book. In the second chapter, Michigan loses again. Suddenly they've lost 2 out of their last 3, and they've lost Eli Brooks. Is he going to come back soon? Is he not going to come back at all? And how much trouble is there in Ann Arbor because of that? In the third chapter, we'll go to the UFC, where UFC 259 saw a controversial champion crowned, and also, perhaps even more controversially, was how the UFC decided to handle their new champion. In the fourth chapter, there's a new basketball league that could pay 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds, or is expected to pay 16 and 17-year-olds, $100,000. So if you're a kid watching this show and you're very good at basketball, you don't like school, get a little bit better, and perhaps you can convince your parents or just sneak out of your parents' house and make more money than them. And then, of course, in the fifth chapter, after the major wager, we're going to bring in our intern, Brian Jelinek, and we'll tell you about some of our all-time favorite Detroit sports teams. But Dennis, let's start off with the first chapter, and that takes us to the same old Lions, where we got some pretty good news, or pretty big news today, and some pretty big, some pretty surprising news over the weekend. We'll get to the big news in just a moment, but the surprising news, check out, I'll show you a tweet that came out on Sunday from Adam Schefter. If I can pull it up for you guys. Here's what it says. Lions have had trade discussions with other teams regarding their backup quarterback Chase Daniel. Per sources, Daniel has been considered an ideal mentor for young QBs, something he learned from Drew Brees during their time together in New Orleans. We know that this new regime has been changing things around, cutting guys, and this is their first opportunity to really start to make some moves. But Chase Daniel, not a name that I think you or I had on the top of our radars, but you look at his 12-year career, and it's not all that strong. 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, less than 1,700 yards passing. Some quarterbacks get to 1,700 yards in just their 6th game of the season, and he's going into the second year of a 3-year, $13 million deal Dennis, what do you make of this Chase Daniel trade rumor?
Well, I make if it is that the Lions' plan is that they don't really value the backup quarterback position where they're at right now, and they shouldn't. Like, if you're a team that thinks that you have a chance to win the NFC North and make the playoffs, you want to have a serviceable backup. Back in the day, the Lions had Sean Hill. He was pretty good. Look at the Eagles. They had Nick Foles. And look what that did for them. The Lions don't need a backup quarterback that's serviceable or works with quarterbacks or anything else. They got an old veteran here that's taken up a big. They took a bunch of draft picks just to take on his gigantic salary for 2 years. This team's tanking, and the news today confirmed that. I think that they go out, jettison this QB, and you know what, Daniel. If he's so good, make him the quarterback coach. Who cares about being the backup quarterback and working with other young QBs? But yeah, they don't need him here, and it's not like he's vying for any spot or anything else, or whether he would be really valuable for Goff, or if the Lions needed him in a stretch for 2 games. He's just not here. He's not a fit here, not needed here. So get him out.
Yeah, I think this is great news. I mean, it gives you the opportunity to keep on cleaning house, get rid of all these Bob Quinn guys, because so many of these Bob Quinn guys were terrible. Like you mentioned, Chase Daniel is not a special backup quarterback. Obviously, when he was with the Bears, he came in and beat the Lions. But coming into Ford Field and beating the Lions is not my definition of special. He's not Ryan Fitzpatrick. He's not Jameis Winston. He's making over $4 million a year. I was just stunned that there were multiple teams apparently calling because they were interested, because the tweet says Lions have had trade discussions with other teams, plural. So they're like, Chase Daniel is some hot commodity among other NFL teams. Like, everybody's trying to fill their backup quarterback spot, and all of a sudden Chase Daniel is one of the top 5 backups that's apparently available. Like, if I was Brad Holmes and over the weekend I got 2, 3, 4 NFL teams calling me about Chase Daniel, I'm sitting there stunned. I'm calling Dan Campbell and saying, hey, put down the kneecaps, and I'm calling all these other guys and saying, hey, like, somehow, some way, people think that Chase Daniel is worth anything, and we can get this $4 million off of our cap. This is, I think, great news. It's surprising news. I wouldn't say great because it's just Chase Daniel, but it's positive news. It's surprising news. If he's such a great mentor, obviously that's not needed in Detroit, because the Lions have a 2-time Pro Bowler in Jared Goff. Is he going to get back to Pro Bowl level? Who knows, but he has been there. Goff does not need a mentor. He just needs to be fixed up a little bit. And if the Lions can clear that cap space and get a 6th or a 7th round pick for him, then you take that. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I think the other thing is it opens it up for taking a QB in the draft more, even at 7. Taking him in the 2nd round, or as we discussed last week, taking some of those late round flyers, or 6th to 7th rounder, especially if you're getting a 6th or 7th rounder. Like I said, 7th round, Ian Book, 6th round, Peyton Ramsey from Northwestern. Take a guy like that and have those guys be your backups. Look, man, Jalen Hurts was a backup. Now he was a 2nd round pick there. You saw him getting into play, but it's the one thing what the Lions are doing here, and I like it. They're taking the long view. They're not going into this year. I know a lot of Lion fans, even with the Lions talking about retooling or rebuilding, they were like, yeah, we're still going to compete 9-7. We like Jared Goff. I mean, those are just the kind of fallback things that you do as a Lion fan, where you don't want to hear Brian Chapman laughing at you. He's like, oh, you negative SOBs. Let's get behind Campbell. Let's get behind this new regime. Well, the new regime is making it clear, like, look, they're not competing for anything except being at the bottom. The Lions are taking this year, and it's okay. That's what they should do. And they should work to get their cap right. They shouldn't be paying Jared Goff any money. Or the reworking his deal to try to save some money. They should be just coughing on that gigantic salary for this year and next year, and really 2023. Hoard up a bunch of draft picks. Take a couple shots at some quarterbacks. If you like one at 7, you can grab them. If not, grab one later on, throw them into the mix, see what happens there, and just churn this thing out. And then, maybe you want to talk about next year if you hit on a bunch of picks and you got your quarterback that maybe you can, feel like you're going to compete in the NFC North next year. But, feel like 2023 and embrace it if you're a Lions fan. We've been watching this tire fire for, if you're as old as me, forever. 60-year stank been going on here. So if you've been waiting this long, you could wait a couple more years. And they have made it clear that's what they're doing. And that's a good idea. Get a bunch of draft picks, load up, and then make a run in the years ahead.
It's weird that you'll look at a lot of Detroit sports fans and they'll say, yes, the Tigers need to do a rebuild, and they're doing things the right way by getting all these draft picks and prospects. The Red Wings need to go through a rebuild, and Steve Eisman, I trust him. He's getting rid of the dead weight, and things are moving in the right direction. The Pistons, they need to go through a rebuild. I like what Troy Weaver's doing. But then when it comes to the Lions, who have won one playoff game since 1957, it's not, rebuild. It's like you said, there's slappies, not everybody, but there are slappies out there that say, let's just rebuild on the fly and win 8 or 9 games. And we can't afford to get rid of this guy because what's our team going to look like this year? It doesn't matter. Just like the Pistons record, the Tigers record, and the Red Wings record doesn't matter this year. Some of these Lions slappies need to put down that Kool-Aid and say, you know what? The Lions record doesn't matter this year. But speaking of drafting a quarterback at the 7th overall pick, Lions general manager Brad Holmes was on the Huddle and Flow podcast recently. I think it might have been earlier today. And here is what he said when he was asked about the possibility of drafting a quarterback at number 7 overall.
But just, from in your evaluations and everything, and just kind of looking at what you and Dan and Ray and everybody want to build there, this draft, are you necessarily out of the quarterback market?
Oh no, I wouldn't. No, absolutely not. I don't think when you're picking this high that you can be out on any position. But obviously, quarterback is such an important position, and I just think it's good. It's good drafting business always to be very, very thorough on that quarterback class, regardless of what your situation is. Always when I was with the Rams, always said that, always regardless of what you had at quarterback, and then even especially now, it's the same approach, and it is a good crop coming out this year, but it's definitely not a position that will be ignored by us by any means.
So that leads you to believe that, yes, they could do what you said, Dennis, and take a look at an Ian Book or Peyton Ramsey, but guys like Justin Fields, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, if he falls to number 7, that's in the realm of possibility as well. I still like the idea of not drafting a quarterback this year, filling some of these other needs, and then drafting a quarterback next year. Well, you'll be drafting even higher, and that rookie deal, you wouldn't have wasted a year on that quarterback's cheap rookie deal in a year where they're not going to win.
Yeah, it really depends on what you think of the guy that's going to be there at 7. And like we've talked about before, other big-time quarterbacks have sat for a year, like the best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. So, if you get the right one and
the best quarterback of all time, the best quarterback of all time, Aaron Rodgers, sat multiple years.
Good point. It's not like Brady, who also could be considered the greatest of all time, was there from the first game. That didn't happen either.
Yeah, that's fair as well. What kind of feedback are we getting?
Well, a bunch of people that are in love with the Lions. Now let's go to it here, and Keith saying, "What's up, fellas? Yeah, it was really nice out today. Great to be driving out in that weather. Chase Daniel was such a bad signing, and they raced out to get him on day 1. That's right, way too much money and not that good, even for a backup."
Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to be missing Chase Daniel if he leaves. And to get anything for him, 6th round pick, 7th round pick, special teams ace, whatever you can get for him, I think is something that you'll take. And whether it's and when it comes to replacing him, let's also throw in one other guy. if Kellen Mond, who Chris Sims was so high on, falls to the Lions, particularly on day 3 in the 4th or 5th round, that's an option as well for your backup and a guy who could sit for a year or two behind Goff.
Yeah, there's no reason to have him on the roster. Now, if you think you're a team that is a quarterback away from, winning the division, that's different. You bolster that backup position, but that's not the Lions. So he should be out of town. That is a smart move. Keith adding that the Lions have been rebuilding forever.
Mm-hmm.
This is how the Slappies feel, and they just want to see a winner, as we've all waited enough. This was why I hate the Lions. Well, I can understand, hating them. This particular plan here, where they're going into a season, it's never happened in my lifetime, where they're going in, and the expectations are for them to, win 4 games. A lot of times people thought they were going to win 4 games. A lot of people this team's going to be terrible. But this time they're actually going in and trying to win 4 games. That's the difference. You go back to Jared Goff just for a second, because people, of course he's got a big name, played in the Super Bowl, had a number 1 offense, number 2 offense in 2 years there, won some playoff games, won a playoff game this year. And people are like, hey, maybe they're going to catch lightning in a bottle, or Holmes really knows something. He's looking out there at that wide receiving core, and now Kenny G is gone. He's looking out there, it's like, man, who am I going to be throwing the ball to? These guys are taken.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a rough year. It's going to be a rough year for everybody. And look, when it comes to Kenny Golladay, and that's probably what we should get to next, it is going to be a big challenge for Jared Goff in 2021, at least if the roster stands like it is right now when you look at the wide receiver room, because the Lions elected today to not slap the franchise tag on Kenny Golladay or anybody else. We mentioned Romeo Okwara, and we thought that'd be a dumb move to franchise him last week. But Kenny Golladay is an unrestricted free agent, and there was a lot more talk about possibly franchising Golladay, about that being a better fit if they were going to franchise him, and also potentially tagging and trading him. But they didn't tag and trade him either. They just said, hey, you're free to go. What do you think about the Lions' decision?
Well, I think it's the right one. If they would have been able to get something higher than a 3rd-round pick. Remember, this really was going to be the telling move for the organization right now in their future. If they would have went out there and tagged Kenny Golladay or worked into a long-term deal, you could make an argument wow, they've got absolutely no wide receivers. They have to go out there and at least have somebody give Jared Goff a fighting chance. You could make that argument. That then if that happened and you're a Lions slappy, you're also saying, yeah, man, we got Jared Goff. Maybe we can do something. Maybe this isn't just going to be this terrible year. Let's go into this season thinking that we can do something. We'll be in that group, 75% of the teams, 7-9, 9-7 range. Hey, why not? Maybe Goff will be like he was a couple years ago, have this synergy with Kenny G, and the Lions will be above 500. This is clear. The Lions are just letting Kenny Golladay move on, and they'll get a 3rd rounder
next year.
I don't even think if a team offered the Lions a 3rd rounder this year, they're like, we'll just take one next year. Usually you want one up front, it's more valuable now, but when you're playing the long game, 3rd rounder this year.
Well, if they turned down the 3rd-round pick, that was dumb, because it would be a 3rd-round pick this year, and it would be multiple picks higher because the compensation round or supplemental round, whatever it's called, is after the end of the 3rd round.
Great point, Chapman. You mentioned that a week or 2 ago, and for some reason I forgot your great point. And I was over there talking about it again. Plus, if you got the higher pick this year and you really wanted to move it on to next year, you could probably get a 2nd rounder for that pick. So great point there. So nobody was offering the Lions a 3rd-round pick, and they'll just be happy to get a compensatory pick at the end of the 3rd round next year.
Yeah, and you're right about the message it sends. If you are slappy, then you would be hanging on to the thought process of, hey, one of the reasons we sucked last year was because Kenny Golladay only played 5 games. If we've got him back, hey, 8-8, there's only 7 teams, or there's 7 teams that make the playoffs, and We could sneak right in there. The Bears are going to suck. The Packers are not going to bring back Aaron Jones. We could win the division. No, I mean, you can't buy into that now when you look at your number one receiver, if the season started today, being Quintez Cephas. But with Golladay gone, and with Amendola and Jones likely to not return, because I don't think they're going to be re-signing any of them, it opens up so many possibilities at number 7. Yes, quarterback is on the table, but Jalen Waddle at wide receiver, Jamar Chase at wide receiver, Devontae Adams at wide receiver.
Smith.
I'm sorry, Devontae Smith at wide receiver. Those are now all options because wide receiver is now arguably, if not certainly, the biggest weakness on the team. You might say, well, you shouldn't take a wide receiver that high, but look at who they have. They just got themselves some guy who missed all of the 2020 season for the Raiders, and they're trying to reclaim him, so maybe he's their number one receiver, but they've got the worst wide receiving core in the NFL as of today.
Let me just go out there and say it right now. If they take Waddle, Devontae Smith, or Chase, I'm happy with that. I think all three of those guys are great.
Yeah, and given the need, given what their situation looks like right now, given their talent level, it makes sense. And whether you believe that Goff can return to his Pro Bowl form or not, it makes sense to have yourself a star wide receiver. He needs one, and if you draft a quarterback either this year or next year, that quarterback is going to need somebody to throw to besides T.J. Hockenson.
Well, and Sideshow Raj, I was watching his YouTube channel last night. I was in there, jumping in there as they were talking a little bit about the Lions. He says Hawk should be an All-Pro this year. He's clearly Goff's best target. Jelinek adds right there below him, only target. Which is true. All-Pro, you're talking about him being like
better than Kelsey, better than Kittle.
You got to be a top 2. You got to be a top tight end.
So maybe he thinks that that they're both going to blow out their knees. Is there an animal behind you?
There is one. That's a story for another day.
Okay.
But I'll tell it if you want. We had out in the barn. We had a cat.
Oh.
It was a haired cat. He's been out there for a couple of years. This was a very sweet cat, but he was, his long hair got a little matted down and everything, and it was so cold this winter. We thought, you know what? He wasn't looking good. He's an older cat. We rescued him to begin with. And we thought, hey, it's probably it for him. Let's do the main thing, take him to the doctor. But the doctor looked at him and said, hey, you can just shave him on up. He's okay. He's good to go. Good news for the cat, bad news for the Peach Mountain studio here, because that's where he's hanging out right now until he gets shaven, which is all right, but he likes to, jump up and walk onto things right now, and that's okay. That's okay. We'll bring him out. Once he gets shaved, he'll look like a lion.
A same old lion?
Good point. No, we'll see. He's going to look like a black lion.
Okay.
When we get him shaved up, I'll bring him out and introduce him to everybody there.
Well, maybe like a Carolina Panther.
There you go.
All right, Dennis, you ready to turn the page to the second chapter?
I am.
All right, let's do it.
That is going to get us to a little college basketball. And you know what? A little spoiler for what happened in the fifth chapter, or the major wager last week, is when I thought that 12 points in Michigan State looked awful good. A desperate Michigan State team just needing just needing one win to punch their ticket and get in. And I thought, that they would be able to go in Ann Arbor. And if they weren't going to win the game, I thought they'd be able to keep it within 12. That didn't happen. But then Sunday, they played in East Lansing, and in the first few minutes, Michigan guard Eli Brooks went down with a gruesome-looking ankle injury, left, had to get helped off the floor, came back later in a boot. His status is unknown right now. So, Chap, the question to you and everybody out there watching is, how far can Michigan go without Eli Brooks?
Well, I think Michigan could be in some pretty big trouble. They've only lost 3 games this year, and in each game they looked really bad. They lost at Minnesota. They got destroyed by Illinois, and then they lost to Michigan State. We're used to seeing them dominate because that's what they've done in every other game this year. And the common factor in 2 of those games, the Minnesota game and the Michigan State game, Well, I guess there's two commonalities. Number one is that they were both road games, but number two, Eli Brooks didn't really play. He didn't play at all against Minnesota, and he barely played against Michigan State. When he, at the time of his injury, I believe Michigan was up 7-5, and then they ended up losing the game by 6 points, so an 8-point swing. I found it really weird when Michigan got crushed by Minnesota without Eli Brooks, because he's just not a star player. He's got no chance to go to the NBA. I don't think he's got any chance to go to the G League. He's just a solid college basketball player, solid Big Ten player, not a freak athlete, never going to lead your team with 20 points or anything like that. But it was just weird because when he was out against Minnesota, Michigan looked like a bad team. Not an okay team, but a bad team. And they lost by 18. And with Eli Brooks playing, they beat Michigan State by 19. Come back the next game, he doesn't play for 90% of the game. They lose by 6, and the game wasn't really in that much doubt in the second half. So for Michigan to not have any offense going for the most part without Brooks, it's a struggle. And obviously it didn't help that Dickinson was in foul trouble. I think that this next week is going to be critical because college teams don't give, for the most part, detailed information like pro teams do on a player unless that player is out for the season. And when it comes to an ankle injury, it's really hard to tell just by looking at it. Sometimes a player won't turn his ankle at a very severe ankle or a very severe angle, and he'll miss a month. Other times, he'll turn it at a severe angle like Eli Brooks did, and he'll only miss a couple of games, or he'll be back later that games. It's really surprising and really an inexact science if you're just looking at it. And with us not being doctors, with us not having the diagnosis, and with Michigan not telling and likely not to tell, we don't know. It seems like he might have had a severe ankle injury because it was at such a nasty angle and he was carried off the court. Those are not good signs. If he returns for the Big Ten tournament, that's obviously a great sign for Michigan. I don't think he's going to be there for the tournament just based on my own guessing, my own hunch. And we're gonna see how Michigan responds. On Friday, 5 days after he turned his ankle, Michigan is either going to have a third matchup in like 8 days against Michigan State, or they'll play Maryland. If they lose that game or they look bad, it's a bad sign for Michigan heading into the tournament. If they win ugly and then they get crushed by Ohio State or Purdue, it's another bad sign. If they can find a way to figure things out with Brooks not there, then perhaps it's an injury they can withstand. But right now, I'm not looking at Michigan as a Final Four team right now because of what I've seen from them when Brooks doesn't play.
Yeah, I think all of what you say there is probably right. The one thing about Brooks is that he's not great at everything. He's not great at any one particular thing. Not a great scorer, not a great shooter, but he pretty much does everything that you want. He can slide over and he can play point. He's a really good defender. He can shoot. He can score. He's good at the free throw line. He led the Big Ten in plus minus this year. Luka Garza, I think overall in all games, but in Big Ten games, plus 263. It's a crazy number. It shows you when he's out there, whatever you think about plus minus, he led the Big Ten in that. And, you screw up the rotation there. It's a great three-guard rotation that Michigan had going with Mike Smith and Shondae Brown. Now you take that out, and what else can you say? 2 of their 3 losses there, he pretty much wasn't in them, and they didn't look like the same team. So I think the caveat that you put in there, if he doesn't play at all this weekend, Michigan goes and wins the Big Ten tournament, you say, hey, they've absorbed that loss, and then maybe they can get him back. Going in, you wouldn't think they would need him in a 16-1 game, maybe not even an 8-9 game. So
well, hold on a second. If Michigan loses in their first game, they might be a 2 seed because right now a lot of people say that they're either the 3 or the 4 seed. I think they're number 4 in the AP poll. So if they lose 3 out of 4 games, or even 3 out of 5 games, they could be a number 2 seed. I could see a 7 seed or even an 8, 9, or a 10 seed beating this Michigan team right now.
Well, potentially, but also potentially, even if they lose on Friday, they could still be a number 1 seed. It's not out of the question. So, that's sure. You want to say that they could fall to a 2, but they might be able to get by that first game, and they might even be able to get by the second one. Yeah. Without an Eli Brooks, but I think if he was out for the tournament there, that talking about Michigan, like before Sunday, Like they look like they're really good. Had as good a chance as anybody to certainly make the Final Four. Not so much. It's kind of like if you're playing Texas Hold'em, like they've been holding aces and ace king here the whole time. All of a sudden, it's maybe ace nine, ace 8, king 6.
Yeah, this is going to be a real test for Juwan Howard because he's been so great in his first 2 years at Michigan, and he's shown that there's this big flaw when Eli Brooks doesn't play. And I'm actually, it was a pretty surprising stat, but also not that surprising. The one you just mentioned about Eli Brooks leading the Big Ten in plus minus, because we've seen it when he doesn't play at all. The Michigan Wolverines are a big minus, but he's got basically another week and a half to figure this out, and basically 13 to 14 days total to figure this out, because I would not expect Eli Brooks to play. There's a chance that he could, with 2 weeks off or close to 2 weeks off, return for the 8-9 matchup or the 7-10 matchup in the second game. But if that's not the case, that's a very losable game if Michigan is playing the way they are. Juwan Howard has shown himself to be a very good coach. He's got to figure it out with Smith, with Brown, with some other options to get this team turned in the right direction. You look at Tom Izzo, he had terrible point guard play throughout the course of the season. Then Foster Loyer was benched, and then he had surgery, and all of a sudden they realized what I think everybody else realized: don't play Foster Loyer and things get better. He made the change, and now Michigan State has beaten all these behemoths in the Big Ten. Now it's time to see what Juwan Howard can do with his point guard problem.
Yeah, if let's just say Brooks is out for the season, there's no chance he's going to come back at all. Michigan should still, whether they're a 1 or a 2 seed, make it to the second weekend. So they should get to the Sweet 16 even without Eli Brooks. So that would be a huge hit for Michigan this year. We talked about them, being a failure or a bust of a season if they don't get to the Final Four. If they don't have Eli Brooks, I mean, he's going to still put the F tag on him there. But they definitely would need to win those first 2 games if they didn't have Brooks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think Michigan is talented to get to the Sweet 16 without him, but they're also playing so poorly without him that especially if you're a Spartan who loves to lick your chops over the Wolverines getting upset, you would definitely think hard about having Michigan go down in their second game of the tournament.
Well, I think Michigan State fans would give Michigan, out there saying, hey, you lost one of your important backcourt mates there. It was still a really good season, and, great job on the year. And good luck next year. I think that's what most State fans would say. Let's look at some of the feedback here. Sideshow Raj, he's got a Lions question here, asking if we're taking over 1,000 yards for DeAndre Swift this season. Chap, presented with that over and under right now, what would you do?
Well, assuming he's still playing for the Lions, I'm going to take the under. Because Lions running backs never run for 1,000 yards. And he's a second-round pick running back, which means he's probably going to get hurt again. So, yeah, I'll take the under. That's a safe play.
Well, considering he is just in his second year, Reggie Bush ran for 1,000 yards for the Lions. And the way he looked in the second half of the season, I'll take the bet right now. I'll go with the over.
Wow, okay.
Swift and the over. They don't have any wide receivers. They're going to feed. He's going to be a workhorse.
Yeah, they don't have much of anything. So
they got DeAndre Swift.
Well, okay.
He's going to get the ball. He's going to get the ball a lot.
Yeah, well,
Jonas is hammer the under. It looks like I can get all kinds of action on that if I want it.
Yeah.
Hawk is mediocre. Do you notice that he falls down on most of his catches before anyone touches him? Let's see. A couple shows ago, we all agreed U of M was the Final Four bust. Are we still feeling that? That's from BJ there on the live chat. We just answered that one. No, not if they don't have Brooks. I'm not feeling. The caveat there would be as if they go through this weekend without Brooks and win 3 games against, let's say, Michigan State, Ohio State, and Illinois. Yeah, I'd be feeling like my confidence would be back that they could do it without him.
Yeah.
The Book of Eli. Sideshow Raj using the
that was a great movie
emoji of a book. And let's see here, we got some more feedback. Beth says it's off subject. It's all right. She says it was an interesting point about the Pistons as to what Troy Weaver's doing. She says Sabin Lee and Sadiq Bey are rated as the number 4 and 5 players on a rookie list that she saw.
Sabin Lee has made a big surge, and I saw some comments from Troy Weaver earlier today saying that I think he said he saw him in high school, wasn't all that impressed, but saw him in his freshman year at Vanderbilt and was impressed, and with the way that he's progressed throughout the year, he is actually not surprised. But and he also gave an update on Killian.
He better not be.
Well, yeah,
what did he say about Killian Hayes?
Well, he said that they're going to have an update that they can give to the media next week. But this next week is going to be very important for Michigan basketball, and next week's going to be very important for the Pistons basketball when it comes to the point guard position, because Dennis Smith just got himself a triple-double. Sabin Lee's playing all right, and you could have Killian Hayes coming back. It's an opportunity for one of those three to really take control of the starting point guard position before they might have to draft Jalen Suggs.
Keith says, I didn't agree with that. College basketball is a fickle sport. It changes from week to week, or rather can change. I say every year that a team in the top 20 can make it to the Final Four. It all depends on the seedings and the matchup and the injury situations and the refs making those phantom calls. I think college basketball refs are the worst. Well, the refs are going to come into play in basketball for sure. I mean, there's so it's like officiating in hockey where you're coming up trying to make some of these calls, bang bang. You're going to miss a bunch of those. I just know this about watching Michigan over the last few years. In 2014, they won the Big Ten, and they didn't win. And the 2 years that they went to the championship game just recently in 2018 against Villanova, you remember that one? Mm-hmm. And then in 2013, they played against Louisville and lost. Mm-hmm. I remember they were down to Kansas by 14 points with 7 minutes to go. Like, I thought that game was over. Trey Burke hit a 30-footer to send it to overtime. They survived that game. You're never surviving games like that. And then this last one, they played Houston. I remember it was on a St. Patrick's Day. I'm out there. They looked like they were going to lose that game the entire time. 30-footer, from Jordan Poole. Everybody remembers that shot, one of the greatest shots in, I'll say tournament history, certainly in Michigan basketball history. To make 2 30-footers to get to the championship game, you can't count on that. You had one of the Harrisons shoot a 30-footer, I think, to in the Elite Eight to send Kentucky to the Final Four over Michigan in one of those years. And also Derek Walton Jr. had a nice shot. It wasn't a 30-footer. It was a three-pointer line or just inside the three-point line, just rimmed off, or they would have been going to the Elite Eight there. What I'm saying, man, is it's not all luck, but, big-time shots, crazy. That's what makes it so great. But you're in with a chance. You're in with a mix. You're in the mix. It's great because it's unpredictability and how everything's on the line in one game and how you're considered a failure even if you're a really good team. With Michigan, it's been such a fun year, and I'm a fan of Michigan. It's hard to process what everybody's telling you, like, if you lose in the third round, you suck, and everything's a failure. That's just the way it goes. I mean, you just have to accept that going in. And
well, when you're a fan of a basketball school like you are, then I guess that's the case, right?
That's it, man. Going in, it's wild. Buckle up, get ready, because anything can happen. I love it. It never disappoints me, the NCAA tournament. I even liked it when Michigan was on de facto probation all those years. Still watch it all the way through. It's great to have a team in there, though. Ratchets up the excitement a little bit. Let's go to some more feedback here. Paul, everything he says, let me just start that one over. He says evening, not everything. Evening, Lions draft Pitts, the tight end from Florida. LOL. I don't know, Kyle Pitts, he puts LOL, but there's a lot of people that think the Lions should take Pitts if he's there at 7. I mean, he's a great player.
Look,
we're against that, though. We've talked about that. Both you and I are against taking Pitts.
Brad Holmes said on that podcast, we played it for you a little bit earlier, that he would definitely have to look at drafting some quarterbacks. I think it makes sense for him to say, we'll definitely have to look at Kyle Pitts because he's such a great talent, and perhaps that will entice a team to trade up to get him, but he should not be the guy that drafts him. Even if he trades down, he should not be the guy that drafts him.
Yeah, look, I was opposed to the Lions. Like, I thought it was laughable. It was Kyle Meineke. Kyle Meineke kept writing stories about T.J. Hawkinson. I'm like, Kyle, stop writing stories about the Lions taking Hawkinson. It's never happening, And he's like, well, I don't know. Lions are doing a lot of work on him. I'm like, dude, like, they're not taking Hawkinson. Then there was another story. He's like, he was right. They took Hawkinson.
I thought it was a possibility, and the SOL dream came true.
It did. All right, let's move on.
All right, we'll turn the page now to the third chapter, and that will take us to the UFC 259, and there were 3 title fights in UFC 259. That made it one of the biggest fight cards of all time. In the main event, Israel Adesanya, who was 20-0, moved up to light heavyweight and suffered his first ever loss to Jan Blachowicz. In the co-main event, Amanda Nunes got an easy armbar win over Megan Anderson, and it's just very difficult to see her losing ever. I don't know how she's ever going to lose a fight. And then in the main event, you had, I'm sorry, not the main event, but the third of the 3 fights, you had Aljamain Sterling challenging Pyotr Jan, and through 3 rounds, it looked like Jan was going to cruise to a victory. Then in the 4th round, you had Sterling down on a knee, and Pyotr Jan did this. Boom! We don't have any sound, but I don't think you need any sound. See it one more time. Boom! And if you're new to the UFC, you're probably thinking to yourself, what's the big deal? There are a bunch of savages in an octagon. He need him in the head. But that's an illegal knee, because if an opponent has a knee on the ground, you cannot knee him to the head. That's an illegal move, and the video doesn't show what happened afterwards, but he was writhing on the ground. He was clearly disoriented, and no doubt he suffered a big concussion. And then the doctor came in, and here's what happened when the doctor came in. We'll see if we can get the sound for you as well.
Here, are you seeing straight?
A little, it's like a little.
You dizzy?
Just a little. I mean, I'm laying down, so it's better.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Call this fight.
It's all over.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
There it is.
That's it.
And that is it.
That's it.
Wow.
So we will wait to make it official, but it looks as though Pyotr Jan will be.
Yeah, I mean, he was dizzy. They ended the fight because of that dirty knee. But that's not where the controversy ended. That's where it started, with Sterling being given the championship belt due to the illegal knee. You could see he was really disoriented. He was really messed up. And after that, they put the belt on him. He dropped the belt on the ring or the octagon, because he didn't want it. And instead of being taken in a wheelchair straight to the back to be examined by the doctors, what you had was him kind of stumbling around with his arms around his trainers, trying to get out of the octagon, and then walking. And where did he walk to? He walked to a seat where he could be interviewed by Joe Rogan. And here's a little bit of the interview. We're not going to play it for you, but just look at his face. You can tell that he's not all there. You can tell that he's disoriented and he's confused. And I was looking at that during the post-fight the interview and all that, thinking like, what in the world is going on here? Obviously, you don't see this very often. But Dennis, what do you think of the way the UFC handled the situation by allowing him to stumble around afterwards and get interviewed by Joe Rogan?
A couple of things. One is that I think the Lions have found a new wide receiver. Like Dan Campbell's like, man, that guy could eat. He can eat a kneecap like anybody's business. Let's sign that dude. But I thought, they should have some independent doctors there. If it's not going to be Sterling's doctors in the corner, I mean, after you're done, they should be able to weigh in and be like, let's get this guy the medical attention. Like, the NFL will have independent doctors looking in. So as soon as he sat down, Joe Rogan should have been doing the same thing. Like, hey, let's get this dude out of here.
Well, they did have the doctor go into the octagon to say the fight is over, but I guess the doctors maybe didn't have the ability to say, hey, you can't interview.
Yeah, I think that they need to look at that because it's just a bad look. Like, we know it's a blood sport and everything else. And back in the day, people wouldn't have batted an eyelash and they'd actually kind of enjoy it. Like, oh man, he's punch drunk. God doesn't even know where he was at, man. Cool. That's not cool anymore. It's like, let's take a look and let's get as much immediate attention as you can on somebody. Let's not stick a headset on anybody that just took a knee to the head and doesn't know what day it is. They learn from that and move on if they can. But yeah, they dropped the ball. I mean, it's just not a good look. I don't think the fans care, but overall, if you're trying to draw, and it's huge, if you're trying to draw more people in, at least make an attempt that you're trying to, keep your fighters. You're trying to do the best you can to serve their interest and try to keep them safe.
I think the fans do care about this because I watched this fight at Motor City Casino at their sports book.
Oh, yeah, I saw your pictures.
Mm-hmm. And when he was being interviewed, when he was stumbling around, I was yelling, like, get this guy to the back, put him in a wheelchair. And there are lots of other people in the sports book that were stunned that they were allowing him to be interviewed as well. I was not the only one. I mean, it was savage to have him do this. He was not in any right state to be giving answers, and obviously he was able to give some answers, but you could see just the expression on his face, the anguish that was there because of how disoriented he was, how dizzy he was, the fact that he was stumbling around before then. This was not a time to be getting some insight into what he thought of the fight. I mean, before he even left the octagon, when he tried to sit up, you could see his eyes roll around. He knew that he was not right and he could not fight. And not only could he not fight, but he was not in position to be giving answers. So they needed to put him in a wheelchair, take him straight to the back. Maybe they could interview a trainer. Maybe they could do something else. But you don't have to interview. It's nice to interview a champion. You want to interview someone who's just taken a belt, but not in this situation. It wasn't right. And this is not the first time the UFC has done that. Back in 2017, Daniel Cormier lost his second fight to John Jones. He got kicked in the head. He had similar expressions on his face. And Joe Rogan interviewed Cormier in the octagon, and Cormier's face was looking like this, it was scrunched up, and he was halfway crying, and he didn't know what the heck was going on. And Joe Rogan even said, I don't like interviewing fighters when they get knocked out, but he did so anyway. He only asked 2 questions. They have to change their interviewing standards. The vast majority of the winners should be interviewed, but not when they get knocked out, and that certainly doesn't happen very often. An illegal knee like that to win a championship belt has never happened, but this was inhumane.
Well, I'll take your word for it that everybody at the casino there was aghast like you, and they want this
I would
changed,
say most,
but
not everyone, but most.
Yeah, to me, it's not like, let's put a punch drunk, guy who doesn't know where he's at, doesn't know what day it is. Let's get him on the mic, but I think there's also people that do like that, but yeah, clean that up. That's something that seems like it could be an easy fix. Like, if somebody looks like they're knocked in the next week and they don't know what day it is, have a set of 3 questions they have to answer or something before they go on there. That seems to be pretty easy. Sideshow Raj messed up his parlay by picking Adesanya, so.
Yeah, and I do want to say this because I believe Sideshow Raj was the guy last week who asked what I thought about who was going to win the fight between Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz. And after looking at it a little bit longer, I decided not to bet the fight at all because of the fact that you had Blachowicz at his typical lightweight weight, and you had Adesanya coming in 5 pounds below weight, saying he wasn't going to put on weight, and probably weighing 20 pounds lighter than Blachowicz at the time of the fight. So I just thought that was a big risk, and I just decided not to bet it, and I was happy I didn't.
Make any money on the Sterling fight?
I think I did because I think I bet over 2.5 rounds, and that disqualification came in the 4th round.
There you go. Nice job. What was the casino like? Pretty nice?
Yeah. It was people had to be socially distanced in the sports book. All the seats were 6 feet apart, and there weren't a whole lot of seats. But yeah, it was a nice environment.
Those pictures I saw of you, with your arm around somebody, it didn't seem like you were 6 feet apart.
My arm was
Just
not
for the
around
photo.
anybody.
Okay. All right, I don't know. Maybe I was just imagining it.
Yes. That's fake news.
All right. Let's get to the next one.
All right, we'll turn the page to the 4th chapter.
All right, watch out. NBA and G League and college basketball. The Overtime Elite Basketball League is coming in and paying 16-year-olds big-time money to play in their league. The chances, Chapman, that the Overtime Elite Basketball League happens and succeeds.
Oh, it looks like it's going to happen because I think they've raised over $20 million. It's supported by Carmelo Anthony. He's one of their investors, and it's weird because they're not just talking about competing with the G League and college basketball, where after you graduate high school, there's another option. This is an option for high schoolers, like after your sophomore year of high school, leaving as a 16-year-old, or after your junior year of high school, leaving as a 17-year-old, and playing in this league where these guys are going to be getting a minimum of $100,000, plus they're going to get $100,000 to use in scholarships if they want to pursue an education afterwards, and they're going to get medical benefits. It's when I first heard about this, I didn't really like the idea. It sounded interesting because it was another way to pay players, and you're obviously talking about individuals who aren't even high school graduates. You're talking about high schoolers, and $100,000 is a reason to leave high school, especially if your family doesn't come from money, even middle class money. $100,000, it makes you the richest person in your family, and you can't even vote. Think about that. But and then of course having the $100,000 to go to college if you can get your GED, that's nice. What prospective college student wouldn't want to have $100,000 in scholarships? But then I heard the Yahoo Sports College podcast break it down, and I was completely turned off by it because the league is going to have 30 players. 30 players. So that's enough for 2 or 3 teams. And they're talking about touring around Europe. They're talking about making their money by owning the rights to the highlights for use on social media, because Overtime is a social media company that plays that I guess owns a lot of highlights to guys like Zion Williamson and other prep stars before they become pros. So perhaps that would be how they make their money. But like, nobody's going to be watching the Overtime Elite League. You look at basketball ratings, NBA regular season ratings are decent. College basketball ratings are decent only for big games. I saw that the Michigan State game got 1 million people to watch last Thursday, and that was only the 12th weekday ESPN broadcast with at least 1 million viewers this year. People aren't watching Purdue versus Wisconsin. Maybe Michigan State, certainly Duke and North Carolina. But they're not watching a lot of these regular season games. And nobody's watching the G League, even the G League Ignite. So who's going to watch high schoolers, particularly if a lot of these high schoolers, the stars, are still going to go to college basketball or maybe the G League? Nobody's going to watch it. You and I, every once in a while, will throw on an Imani Bates game. But who else is watching Imani Bates play? And he's one of the greatest high school basketball players of all time. If you get like a generic 5-star who decides to go to this league a year early as a senior in high school, nobody's going to watch this. So I think it's not likely to be successful.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to even happen. I know Carmelo's behind it. They've got the money, but I just start thinking of all the mechanics of it. I mean, was they going to put 30 guys together, or they're all going to move to Indianapolis to practice before they go barnstorming around Europe? That doesn't sound like it's going to be able to happen. And to your point, which is I think is the best one, it's like, who's showing these games? They're just going to show them on Twitter or something like that. Show them on YouTube. The only chance that it has, like the NBA. The new thing that you could buy the highlights, which seems to be a pretty big deal.
Top Shot.
Maybe they would be able to, land a couple of those videos where they would be able to watch it like that. But throwing a bunch of kids together. Like I watched Amani Bates take on Chet Holmgren, for the top player in this upcoming class, and Bates is the top player in 2023. Those guys were playing for high school teams. These guys just throwing together. It's going to be like watching some like ABCD camp, playing against somebody in Europe. At what time are they going to play? I love basketball. I wouldn't watch that. I just like, are they going to go touring around China next? Who's covering them? Like they're going to send some media. ESPN going to send one of their guys, Chad Ford, over there.
24/7 Sports and those kind of analysts, maybe.
I don't know, maybe, and then throwing that on their site. I don't see the interest. Your point about college basketball, it's got some people that watch it, but then how many G League games? I taped a G League game because the two guys that are projected to go in the top 5, they were playing. It was like their debut, and but I haven't watched it. I recorded it. It's still up there. It was like a month ago. I haven't watched that. I mean, there's other basketball on. I watch a little bit of the NBA Summer League, a little bit, and those are a lot of the guys that I know. I know half of the players, probably even more than that. You're telling me a bunch of dudes that are in high school that might be a couple 5 stars that are going to be barnstorming across Europe. That I'm going to watch this. I don't think it succeeds, and I would bet that it doesn't happen.
Well, I think it will, just because it's already got millions of dollars behind it. And I thought one other thing that was interesting about this is that you got Adam Silver, the commissioner of the NBA, who seems to think that it's a good idea. And here's a quote that he had from over the weekend about the Overtime Elite League. He said, "To me, options are a good thing. I think it's generally good for the community to have optionality, especially when very solid people, which appears to be the case in this league that's just been announced, are backing it and behind it. That's one thing we will pay a lot of attention to, because those young players are potentially the future of our league." And one other thing I think is interesting to consider is that you look at Europe, and they've got athletes that are turning pro at 15, 16, 17 years old. And in terms of basketball, a lot of those guys end up getting drafted in the NBA. Like Killian Hayes has been a pro for years, or was a pro for years in Europe. Sekou Doumbouya was the same situation. That happens every year in basketball. They do the same thing with soccer. So maybe this is a step toward doing something like that in the U.S. In terms of making money, though, I just don't see the interest in that because of the reasons that we brought up. And I'm just not a fan of giving these guys professional status before they've even got themselves a degree. If they get a GED like Jeremy Bonderman did and skipped a year of high school, then okay, I get it. But I mean, 16-year-olds giving them $100,000 when they're a 4-star recruit, no thanks.
Sounds like it would make a nice Netflix series. You follow these guys around, which ones show up, who gets in trouble, how many end up lasting, how many actually get on a plane and go over and leave their parents when they're 16 years old.
Who blows their money?
$100,000 in Paris,
Yeah.
Where you can go over there, you can drink in Europe, you can pretty much do anything you want over there. They're going to stop in Amsterdam a few times. Yeah, it sounds like a great reality show. But I don't think they'll make their money there, maybe, and maybe with the YouTube, but nobody's going to watch it. So I think Adam Silver was just saying that. He understands that there's no competition to the NBA or anything.
Yeah.
Plus, they're not even talking about, were they competing with your English teacher or something, or that's it. All right, feedback on this. Beth says, is Amani Bates going to MSU or the G League? I've heard both. You want to take a stab at that?
Well, I mean, that's like the $1 million question. I can't imagine that this college basketball season has made it easier for him to stick with his commitment to Michigan State, but maybe winning 3 games against top 5, top 10 teams recently has made him more likely to stick. It's just so hard to tell. I think it's going to be very interesting to see if he tries to go to Michigan State a year early. Because I don't think he would have the ability to go to the G League a year early, but if he wants to go to Michigan State a year early, that would be a possibility.
Right. If he wanted to go there a year early, he's not. If the name, image, and license comes out, I think he would go to Michigan State So then he could, make $1 million off of his name, probably even more than that if he starts signing shoe deals and things like that. I mean, he can just back up and name his price. But if he can't profit and he doesn't reclassify, he goes to the G League, he makes six figures there, and then he'll sign $7 million endorsement deals all the way through that. I would watch Amani Bates in the G League. Tell you that. I know State fans are like, oh, you guys want to push him out, push him to the NBA. You don't want him to have that year of college. I really just think it comes down to how much money he can possibly make. If he reclassifies, instead of being a senior in high school and he goes and wants to play a freshman at Michigan State, like, I could see that. That would be cool. Cool for Spartan fans, good for college basketball, good for the Big Ten. But the part about him being able to bolt, when you're worth that much money, is just as soon as you can get out there, as soon as you're done with high school, you can just say, hey, night comes over. I think they would easily want to sign him for, 10, 20, $30 million. It's kind of like, it's tough to turn that down and say you're going to go play, college basketball.
Yeah, and I can't imagine that the Overtime Elite League is going to be giving you a heck of a lot of money, and people are going to be paying lots of money for your name, image, and likeness if you're not going to be on ESPN and FS1 and CBS. They want you on those channels as opposed to, like, hey, here's a highlight from, at Overtime on Instagram.
Yeah, dude's got more buzz than Zion Williamson before Zion, Zion was at Duke. I mean, the guy's worth $100 million already, and he's a junior in high school. So It's pretty crazy. Yeah, pretty crazy. He's got the world out there by the he's in the catbird seat. All right, let's turn the chapter or turn the page. I'm sorry.
Yeah, before we get to the fifth chapter, let's go to the major wager. And you alluded to this earlier, but what did you choose on Thursday? Just a reminder.
Well, I took Michigan State against Michigan, so I got the 12 points. Michigan ended up winning by 19. Bad pick.
Yes, it was. So what are you looking at tonight?
I'm not looking at anything tonight. I didn't like the menu for this evening. I didn't like any of the games. I bet things that I watch, and I wasn't going to bet the Wings, here tonight, unless it was like the not score any goals, and I didn't want to do that, to the Red Wings. I've been staying away from hockey, but I'm going to go to the Big Ten tournament, and I looked at the value about the teams that are going to win it. Would I bet Michigan without Eli Brooks as the favorite, to win it all? No. I hope that happens. I could see Illinois certainly doing it, but I go down the list and I look for value there, and I don't have the number of what they're plus like 875, I think is what they are. Well, I can look really quick. I'm going to take Ohio State.
Whoa.
To win the Big Ten tournament. I have the odds here as
Ohio State's playing terribly down the stretch.
They're plus 685 to win it all. Yeah, but I've watched all those games. They're good. I mean, they're losing to Iowa. They're losing to Illinois. They lost to Michigan State. That was a bad loss. They lost to Michigan. But you know what? I like their team. I like they got good guard play. They can shoot it. They've got a star in Liddell. I think they can win the Big Ten tournament. It's like I'm sitting around here, talking about them, winning it all in the NCAA tournament. I like them the most because I like the value of plus 685.
Okay.
I'm picking Ohio State to win the Big Ten tournament.
Now, on Thursday, I picked the Celtics -8 against the depleted Raptors. They had just lost to the Pistons the day before, the Raptors did. And the Celtics did win that game, but they only won by 7. So I lost that bet, and I'm getting sick and tired of these Celtics underachieving, particularly if I bet on them. Today, I'm going to shake things up. I did put out a tweet on Twitter with a major wager, but this is a different one. And this is a pick that I'm stealing from the ESPN show Daily Wager. I don't know if you've ever seen that show, but it's a division championship bet from the NBA. And the NBA obviously doesn't value the division championships as much anymore because it used to be if you won your division, then you got the 1, 2, or the 3 seed. And now that doesn't matter. You could technically win your division and not even make the playoffs. But what they recommended was the Phoenix Suns to win the Pacific Division, and there's a lot of logic to it. First of all, the Suns are the hottest team in the NBA. They've won 16 out of 19. Second of all, they lead the Pacific Division over the Lakers by 1 game, over the Clippers by a game and a half. Third, Anthony Davis is still out. Fourth, Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are always sitting out games for load management. Fifth, teams who haven't accomplished a lot, like the Suns, value home court in the playoffs more than the Lakers and Clippers. So the Lakers and Clippers aren't going to be all that disappointed if they don't get the number 1 or the number 2 seed. Number 1 seed might go to the Jazz, but if they don't get the 2 seed, the Clippers and Lakers aren't going to be losing any sleep. Sixth, the value is great. Despite the fact that the Suns are leading the division, at least on DraftKings, the Clippers are plus 100 to win the division. Lakers are plus 140. Suns are plus 300. I got them last week at plus 320, but still plus 300 is amazing. So my major wager is a futures bet on the Suns to win the Pacific Division in the NBA.
It's a good pick. Chris Paul looks great playing with Booker. Man, they look solid, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I want them to keep it that way. All right, now let's turn the page to the 5th chapter, and that allows us to bring in our intern, Brian Jelinek.
Hey guys, what's going on?
Doing all right.
Today.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
What did you think of our first 4 chapters?
I loved it, except I don't understand the UFC at all. I've tried watching with friends, and I don't know if I can get down for watching people just beat the living piss out of each other in the octagon. I don't get it.
So you're saying you're soft?
Do you like boxing?
Not really. I mean, I don't get why do you guys love it?
Chapman loves it.
Yeah, it's just a big adrenaline rush, and there's the change in momentum. You're sitting there watching and thinking, oh, this guy's trying to pick apart this guy's leg with the calf kicks, or he's on the ground trying to get the rear naked choke, and then in the snap of a finger, something can change because somebody gets clocked with something, and either their eyes roll back and they're done, or all of a sudden they're wobbly, and you're saying, oh, get him. In addition, with the UFC, they do a great job of promoting the fighters before each fight. Even if you don't know anybody, you can start to instantly love or instantly hate somebody. And I think in sports in general, if you love somebody or you hate somebody, it makes you more invested as a viewer. Other thing I would say is when you watch UFC, you should watch it with somebody who really knows it, not a casual fan. And the first time I watched the UFC was with my sister. And she got into UFC with some of her friends in college, and she taught me all about it. And now when I'm watching, I'm not just thinking, all right, go punch them really hard. I can understand what they're trying to do, and I can kind of break it down to other people. So make sure that if you want to give it another shot, you watch it with somebody who knows exactly what's going on.
And who's doing the pay-per-view, because I am not going to pay for that.
Yeah, don't pay for it. I agree and disagree with some of the stuff that Chapman says there. I like it because of the different styles of fighting. Some of these guys are great on the ground, some of them up top, some of them have the mixtures. Things do change, like Chapman is talking about, like at a drop of a hat, and that's pretty cool. The thing that I don't like, and I disagree with him, it's great how they promote their fighters and everything, but the one thing about it is that it's so real that you can have a guy that you can really get behind, and he goes down. They need some They need a champ that's going to be in there that can be the people's champ that people can get behind. When I first started watching it, I was all behind this guy, this backyard brawler named Kimbo Slice. He was awesome. He's knocking guys out in the backyard. First time he gets to the octagon, boom, he goes down. That's it. It was over. I didn't watch it for a couple of years after that. They need a Mike Tyson. They need an Ali. They need somebody that the people can get behind.
Isn't that McGregor's job?
Well, he's been like that a little bit, but now he's MIA. He doesn't even coming in, Chapman. He's over the hill, right?
Well, yeah, and he spent so much time not fighting, and I want to go box, and I want to make this alcohol, and I want to go commit crimes. But there's so many different characters in the UFC that it's easy to latch on to a couple of them. The thing that's challenging is that even if you have a favorite fighter, that fighter might not fight for months at a time. That fighter might not fight at all in a calendar year. But I always find it interesting that I don't have to know anything about a fighter or either of the fighters to be instantly drawn into the action.
So you guys could easily sit down and watch a fight. Doesn't matter the day, doesn't matter the time. You guys could just sit down and watch it.
Yeah, I can do that. And you said that you don't want to watch on pay-per-view. That's fine, because for a lot of the pay-per-view fights, the prelims are on ESPN or ESPN2, which you don't have to pay for. And then they also have fights like this weekend. I think the main event is on ESPN Plus, but the prelims I think are going to be on ESPN or ESPN2. And a lot of times those fights can be more entertaining than what's on the main event or the main.
All right, I'll tell you what. I will watch a prelim fight this weekend just to check a box, just to say I've done it. Because I there's no way I can get into it, but I'll watch it.
Yeah, what it's missing before I go any further, like they have a lot of the fights, and people do like that. That sustains interest. But if you go back to boxing, every couple months, or maybe it was like once a year for a while, you would have this main attraction, and it would be pay-per-view. And, for me, I would get together with my friends. We're playing poker. We're drawing up odds. We're gambling. We're doing all this. And then it's the main event. You're watching it, and it's awesome. But boxing jumped the shark. There's not too many fights like that. Wilder was like that. There was a fight, I don't know, was it 2 years ago now? That was pretty cool, with Fury. That was a pretty interesting fight, but, it's few and far between in boxing. The UFC, I wish that they had it more spread out and they were bigger events rather than, I think they just have too many, which saturates it a little bit. But they're making so much money. I think that's because of my age. Because they're putting these out almost every week, and they just continue to get the ratings for them. So I understand why they continue to do it. It just loses a little bit of its appeal to that because it feels like it's watered down to me.
Okay, all right, I'll give you that.
All right, we'll go to the fifth chapter now, and this is a topic that, Brian, you came up with.
Yeah, so, again, I am the youngin' of the three of us, and I just thought about what is your favorite Detroit sports team in your guys' lifetime? Like, for example, mine's the 2013 Tigers. Like, they were just incredible in every way, shape, and form except the bullpen pitching. Other than that, like, I can't – if they made the World Series, they would have beaten the Cardinals without a doubt. So it's the best team I've ever seen.
Why the 13 team over the 12 team that actually made the World Series?
I don't know how to properly answer. I just think just the way the lineup was, because 2012 was the first year, or that was the first year with Fielder, correct? No Victor Martinez.
Either the first or second year. Yeah, it was the first year, I believe.
Yeah, I
what
like
year?
The 2012 Tigers were the first year with Prince Fielder.
Yeah, because they made the World Series.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
And he fell down at
yeah, he fell down at
third base.
Yeah, fell down at third. The 2013 team, I mean, like, I'm looking at some of the averages right now. Like, Brian Pena hit out of his mind. Not Don Kelly. Torrey Hunter, Austin Jackson played out of his mind the whole year. And then we had the 3, 4, 5, and 6, if you count Johnny Peralta, of Miguel Cabrera, Prince, and then Victor Martinez. Like, it was just death's row. And then you have the rotation of Scherzer, who I actually have a poster of. I should have hung it up. Cy Young Award winner, Justin Verlander, all that. Just the team was so much better in 2012, I think, and they won 5 or 6 more games in 2012.
Yeah, and then they had to give up those grand slams.
Yeah, believe me, I remember that too.
Yeah, that was tough.
Well, I'm interested to hear Chapman first. Go ahead and how he ended up deciding on his actual favorite.
Yeah, my favorite would be the 2004 Detroit Pistons, led by Ben Wallace. Big Ben is my favorite Piston of all time. And they were the go-into-work Pistons. I have very vague memories of the first 2 championships because I was so young. Those were in 89 and 90, and I was born in 1984, so I was very young. But in 2004, it was the end of my freshman, or just after my freshman year of college ended. And as a college student, I did an NBA sports talk show on the radio. So for me to be able to have bragging rights going into my second year as the host of a team that was the defending champions was awesome. To see that squad just build throughout the previous couple of years, and then add Rasheed Wallace during the course of the year, to be such huge underdogs in the NBA Finals where nobody thought they had a chance. I didn't think they had a chance. Pistons fans didn't think they had a chance. Before the pandemic, as you know, Brian, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds would often go over to Windsor because they could party and they could drink when they couldn't necessarily do that as a 21-year-old. And after my freshman year of college, right before the series was about to start against the Lakers, I went over to Windsor with some of my friends, and the DJ at the club was saying, "Hey, yo, let's go now. Pistons in 6, Pistons in 6." And as opposed to as everybody saying, "Yeah, let's go, Pistons in 6," everybody's looking around like, are we even going to win the game? Like, nobody thought we had a shot. And for the Pistons to get a 5-game sweep, it was outstanding. So that's my favorite team.
Yeah, this was a really hard one. The exercise, though, was depressing when you start, going back, hey, what's the most recent one where I would say, man, that I had a lot of fun and that would be considered. You got to really start ticking back. There's nothing that's really happened that's been great in Detroit sports for a long time, which is pretty sad. I think all of the championships, it's tough. You put them all up there, and then the younger you are, the more important they are. It's bigger things. I was a freshman when the Tigers won the World Series, and we were driving with the kids across the street. I was just out in the front yard. They grabbed me, and they're like, "We're going to Telegraph." We're driving up and down Telegraph, and it was cool, though. When the Wings won finally in 97, they went to the finals in 95. I was getting together with all of my friends. None of us were married, and we're showing up for every game, every round. We are partying like every game was the Stanley Cup Finals. Those kind of things were awesome. So you start going through all of it, and it really came down to the Red Wings and Tigers for me. I loved being at these Red Wing games. I would do a show. I would sit there at Joe Louis every round. I have these great seats right there. The press box spilled into the crowd. In between periods, I'd go up. The Red Wings are playing the Penguins, and the Pistons were in the Eastern Conference Finals. I'd be in a suite watching the Pistons. That was pretty awesome. But I had to go to the Tigers, and I remember in 2011 they were playing the Rangers and sitting out there in the outfield. It was perfect weather, and I was like, man, it doesn't get any better than this. And it'd be an excellent game. But I didn't go with that. I had to go with the 2006 Tigers because it was such a surprise. They beat the Yankees after they lost the first game. Jeter was 4 for 4, 5 for 5. Didn't look like it was going to happen. They backed into the playoffs when it looked like they were going to win the Central the whole time, and nobody expected them to beat the Yankees, and they did. Then they swept the A's, and it looked like they were going to for sure beat the Cardinals, and of course they didn't. But being at the World Series, even though it was super cold, when Kenny Rogers, Dr. Freeze, went out there and had the brown spot in his hand, and they won that game, he's just sitting there being at my first World Series game. That's the one I'm going to pick, man. That was my
my number 2.
Detroit sports moment.
That's the only World Series game I've been to. I was at that game, the Kenny Rogers game. So
oh wow,
yeah.
So you actually saw Tigers win a World Series game.
I know. I couldn't believe it. I remember my dad bribed one of the ushers so he could stand in a non-standing room area, and we hung out for the whole game. It was awesome. So.
Yeah, in the championship series when they swept and Maglio hit the home run, I probably, whether I was a fan when I was younger, filling out keeping score of the game, or then being in the media sitting there. I did it, but I had never completed an entire game where I kept the score. But in that game 4 against the A's, I decided, you know what? I tried. I was going to make an attempt to fill out a complete box score, and I did it all the way to the very last at-bat, which was Maglio Ordonez. I still have the program there. You look all the way through. I kept the score and everything else up until the last at-bat, which, of course, was Maglio when he hit the home run. Mm-hmm. And I didn't actually count that one. I folded up and was running down, getting down to the field. But that was a great memory. But it didn't top the Tigers, man. They had up there where what is it? It's not premium seating, but they have the VIP, the suites where it's where it's a restaurant and everything up there. Man, they had the greatest spreads that I've ever seen. It was the greatest, man. Cheese tables, meats. It was off the hook up there, man. And it was like that for all of the games, and there was nothing like that. So I went with the World Series in 06. Long answer.
Yeah, it would be nice if the Tigers could get back to there sometime soon, or if any of the teams around here could get back to that spot sometime soon. But these are hard times for Metro Detroit sports fans.
Go
One
ahead.
last question. Are you guys going to be watching the Players' Championship this weekend on the PGA Tour?
No.
Oh, that's so
Yeah, I'll check out some golf, but mostly, you know what? I love this weekend for college basketball.
That's correct.
And I'll be watching all of the conference tournaments, and especially if Michigan stays alive. If hopefully they will. I'll be building my weekend around Michigan, but I like golf, but it's just tough when it competes with the four major sports that I'm interested in. Let me just roll through some of these. UFC is awesome. That's from Peter Shannon, who throws a couple things in here. Says anything can happen. He loves seeing the mix of all of the fighting styles. So he agrees with me on that. Most of the fight nights are free with ESPN Plus, so then it's not free. That's fine. It did sit there. The 08 Lions were my favorite. That's from Pete. He says the Michigan Panthers. That's a great one. You know what? I love the Michigan Panthers too, Keith. That was a great one. Broke my heart when they moved to Oakland. Yeah, 85, the USFL, they had a league, and Anthony Carter, the great Michigan wide receiver, played for him, and a defensive end named John Corker, and they were all, Bobby Hebert was the QB. They had sweet uniforms. If you look back here, this is Anthony Carter in a Michigan Panthers uniform. They had the greatest uniforms, and it was and they won the championship. A professional team that won the championship, 84 or 85, somewhere there. So you guys weren't born yet. Well, that's why you haven't heard of them.
I was born in 84.
Donald Trump owned a team. Like he paid Herschel Walker and Doug Flutie, and there are huge names in there.
I believe
Steve
it.
Young played in there. So they had big time names. Just didn't happen for them. Cool teams. Dupree there, Marcus Dupree. I know they've done a 30-30 on him. He was an awesome running back. A lot of big time names were in that league. But I'm with you on that, Keith. Good question, Jelinek. Nice job today. We'll have to have you do more of those each week, man. That was fun.
All right, guys. See you Thursday.
All right.
Yeah, we will see you Thursday. Chat, we'll see you on Thursday as well. We'll be taking a peek to the weekend conference tournaments. We know that two of us will be excited for that. Somebody else will be excited for the golf. But we'll talk with you on Thursday's Fifth Chapter. Thanks for watching, the feedback and everything else. For Joan Chapman, Dennis Fithian saying good night.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall, and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth Chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fifth Chapter.